Hello everybody, James here, Storytime with Dutch, episode 47, and we have things to plug first. Firstly, I've got books that once again I've just realised I haven't got in front of me. Dutch has got two books, The World According to Dutch and Tales from a Dirt Road. Amazon, you can get them from, or if you want them signed, you go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. Make your request there. I have two books as well. Owen, Hart, King of Pranks, and The Rock, the People's Champion. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, the People's Champion, both on Amazon as well. We've got a t-shirt somewhere. You people mean nothing to me. You can... Man, this is the third week I've been really unprepared, but I've got an excuse.
This is what we got. Oh, I don't have it.
Dutch, you know, just before we started recording, I said I've got an excuse for my incompetence, and at least this week I do, because I'm laid up. I'm 1 week out of ACL surgery, and the amount of drugs they gave me for the first 2 weeks was pretty incredible. I've never had fentanyl before either. They gave me the fentanyl to knock me out.
You're taking fentanyl too?
No. That was just part of the cocktail of the anaesthetist gave me.
Man, I need to go to the UK. Hey, you know, as a wrestler, I bounced around the ring 30 years. And when you're young, you don't feel it. When you get older, then you kind of feel it, because then it's going to stay with you. I take like 2 pain pills a day because of my knee and my back. But it's nothing compared to what you're taking in one dose. You take more in one dose than I do all day long. Did you tell me 30 milligrams?
Yes, so this is what they prescribed to me is 30 milligram codeine, that's 8 a day, 8 paracetamol, then they've given me a bottle of liquid morphine as well. And I didn't tell you this actually beforehand. And I tell you, hey, when you pay private, man, you get the good shit. Let me tell you. And the other thing that I haven't told you is I've got to take blood clot injections every day as well. So now I've got a family member coming around at 10 a.m. every morning to jab me in the side with a blood clot injection.
My God. Well, anyway, I'm not getting that. And sometimes it touches the pain, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it's not unbearable pain, but yet you can tell it's there, and it's irritating more than anything else. Because I hate it, because I'm a big wussy anyway. I hate pain. But anyway, continue with our podcast.
We'll do.
Our podcast numbers are up. You know
yeah, they're doing okay, actually. I've been looking recently. Podcast numbers are doing well, thank you. And I think there's actually quite a few new listeners as well listening. So for people who are new listeners, this is what the format is going to be, at least for this week, and then we just make it up every week, is we're going to have the news at the start, and then we'll either have a load of fan questions, or we're going to have something like focusing on a company or a year or a event, or just anything that I just happen to... I don't think there's very much... I mean, there's not really much planning that really goes into it. I write the scripts quite detailed, but like for a subject, I just go, I fancy doing that today.
Well, I've described this podcast as 2 guys going down the road and just talking, mostly wrestling, and our listeners are staying in the back, and they're eavesdropping on us. And I've had a lot of people write me emails about that and say they really, really enjoy the show.
There was some sort of Reddit post that I was looking at, sort of creeping on, and it was nothing to do with us, but people were talking about their favourite wrestling podcasts. And we got quite a few mentions from random people, which I thought brilliant. You know, at least they weren't saying they were terrible. So we're definitely getting up there.
We got that on Reddit.
Yes.
Wow, that's good then.
Yeah, people love to complain on Reddit.
Oh, you ever visit it?
Well, rarely. Only when I want dirt on someone.
I've been over there a couple of times, but it's wide open. I'll say that.
It certainly is. And
let's talk a little wrestling here.
Yeah, definitely. When you say we normally talk about wrestling, and then when we stray off wrestling, we get in trouble apparently. So anyway, but we'll who cares? Let's just carry on doing it. We're going to do some wrestling news, in fact, at first, and let's talk about Cody Rhodes first. Getting beaten down by Brock Lesnar the day after WrestleMania 39. You'll have seen it. Lesnar originally comes out very pally. This is Raw the week before as we record this, with Cody at the beginning of the night, then he turns on him at the end of the night. One of the longest beatdowns of all time. And then last Monday, in fact, actually, let's just focus on that. What do you think of that booking the day after WrestleMania?
Okay, I can see the Cody Brock alliance. I can kind of see that. But how long do you have to beat a guy down before somebody, and I've said this before, Cody Rhodes must not have one friend in that whole dressing room. Because years ago, when we would beat a guy down, after a point, you would have some help come. And sometimes the help would get the crap beat out of it. And sometimes, the attacker would back up. And there is a point of, I think they hit the Rubicon. I think the point of no return. After a while, nobody cared. You can actually beat somebody too much. And that's what I think. I think they were trying to really get Brock back in the beast mode. But I think him turning should have been the biggest surprise, not how long he beat him down. So, and would I have beat Cody that much? No, nowhere close. I may have went half that time and then have some guys show up, because half these guys showing up now, they're future opponents of Brock too. Cody might get hurt. You don't know, but I would have done half that, and I think you'd have had a bigger return on it. My opinion.
Would you have booked that at all? Would you have said Cody maybe should continue going after Roman Reigns, because now they've just split Cody, like this whole story from the Rumble to WrestleMania has now just got a chapter end on it, and now there's a completely new chapter. Is this just something to sort of spread out the story further, or would you have continued to have him go after Roman?
Well, I don't understand the purpose of that either. Now, I would have kept those two together somewhat and put him in some tag teams, and Roman put some stipulations on him. And if you do this and do this, then he finally gets another shot. But after a while, you do hit that point. I just talked about it. The point of no return, when the people said, okay, I know you're stringing us along, but give us something, because they're going to have to put it on Cody at one point. I think now, after looking at it, I think it might go a completely different direction, and another person wins the title before Cody. So actually, Roman Reigns retires without Cody Rhodes ever beating him, which really sets something up for 2 years down the line. Now, years ago, we didn't book a year in the future. Hell, we didn't know if we was going to be alive a year in the future, or even 6 months. We would book probably no more, if you had a big show coming up, no more than a month or 6 weeks in advance. Now, of course, we didn't have the contract system. So, if you book too far in advance, hell, the guy might get pissed off. One of your performers might get pissed off and leave. Then you built this big deal for him, and all of a sudden he's in another territory. He's gone. He's been gone. So that was one thing, they didn't book that far in advance, because the guy could just get up and walk out the door.
Well, apparently you can do that in WWE as well. Didn't what was she called? Sasha Banks. She just decided she didn't want to turn up, and they let her out.
And I never understood that. But that is one of the downfalls of WWE, that they get this feeling that you can't do business without them, I guess. Are they trying to prove a point? But they don't get paid if they leave, do they?
How it used to be was, if you get out of your contract early somehow, don't you forfeit 3 months worth of pay-per-view residuals or merchandise and stuff like that, because there's they pay you a quarter afterwards, probably just to keep you there, and so you don't want to lose money in the first place.
I don't know how it works now, but if you're on contract and you're not injured and you don't come to work, I mean, if they were going to pay you, that would be an incentive to walk out. you may be getting ready to walk out in a year anyway. And you said, oh, I'll just walk out and they'll still send me a check. Which brings up Randy Orton has been hurt I talked about him the other day somewhere. But Randy Orton has been hurt for how long? Over a year?
He's getting there, yeah.
Wow. What is wrong with him?
I think, I was just Googling him then. I believe it's a back injury or something like that.
Well, when he gets his check and he looks at it and he said, oh, my back hurts like a son of a bitch. Oh. Hey, that's been known to happen.
Hey, the little Lloyds of London scam in the 90s. Do you remember that? Everybody had a back injury then. And guess what?
I do.
You can't prove you got a back injury or not through an X-ray.
Yeah, and I think Lloyds of London, they don't insure wrestlers anymore.
Mm.
Did you know that?
I'm not surprised to hear it.
Because they had so many scams. The first guy that scammed them, I forgot who he was. Guess what? Monkey See, Monkey Do. Then the second wrestler, he filed a suit. And if you can't find it, and a neck injury is another thing you can't hardly prove.
Mm.
All you got to do is say, oh, it hurts, don't turn it. Now, what some insurance companies, and this is not concerning wrestlers, some insurance companies, when somebody files a claim they're hurt, they can't do this, they can't do that, they will send a private investigator out to the guy's house with a camera, and he just films all day long the guy doing this and cutting his grass and doing this and doing that. Then when he comes in, we says, we need to ask you, did your back get better this day? And that ends the suit. Because if you're going to, hey, it applies in the wrestling business too. My old saying, they'll believe, you give them a reason to disbelieve. And when a guy's back hurts, how's he going up a ladder on top of his roof? And how's he cutting his grass? And how's he digging some flower pots up or something?
One of my uncle's friends actually did that as a job. He was an insurance claims investigator, and he would do that. He would stake out like in the car all day, camera rolling, trying to catch people out. I've got some names for you, in fact. I don't think this is maybe not the first one, but maybe it was. Road Warrior Animal. He did a claim in 1992. And I'll come back to him in a minute because he was a genius at it. Ted DiBiases got a payout in 1993. We'll be talking about Ted later. Kurt Hennig got a back spasm payout for a while. Maybe it's Kurt Hennig. I don't know. Rick Rude definitely did. Bret Hart got a payout as well. But let's go back to Road Warrior Animal. He was the true genius in this because not only did he get a huge payout or yearly payout, annual payout or whatever, he somehow convinced Lloyds of London after 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years, that he could still compete in wrestling, but only in tag team matches. And he was still getting paid by Lloyds of London and then getting paid by...
So he was getting 2 checks at one time?
Yes.
Wrestling check and a Lloyds of London check? Or
yes, he was.
Or did he just get one big check from Lloyds? And
I don't think it was a payout. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that he was still getting paid a monthly check from Lloyds of London. Maybe it was reduced, I don't know, so he could continue working. But he claimed a back injury, and then he came back, a few years afterwards, started tagging with Hawk again, and I'm pretty sure he was getting, for a good few years, 2 checks at one time.
Wow. Well, but you see all those guys in the 90s, right?
Yep.
The usual suspects. Who'd you say now? Who else? Bret Hart,
Ted DiBiases, Road Warrior Animal, Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, yeah,
and Ted DiBiases.
Yeah.
I got a long story about Mr. Ted.
Oh, keep that for a bit. We'll get there.
We'll get to it.
We will get there. In fact, I'll save this. No, I won't save this. We both watched WrestleMania 39. Both did a review of it, and I asked you questions at least. And somehow this one completely missed my eye. Is that at one point Cody Rhodes was lying defeated in the ring, and then someone threw a rubber chicken in the ring at him. Did you see this? I totally missed it.
I didn't see that. I heard about it, but I think that is a throwback to his AEW days, where he would throw his belt out there and they'd throw the belt back, or he would throw something out there, they would throw it back. I don't know what throwing it back means. That we don't want it. I don't know. But you didn't see that in AEW, like he would throw something out there and all of a sudden they'd throw it back. It became like a regular thing.
It was this isn't to do about a rubber chicken. Apparently one was thrown at him before at one point many years ago. But when Pat Patterson used to be in the ring, or Vince McMahon, this is during the Attitude Era, someone would always throw a lemon at them. And there's several episodes of Raw, or there's even one of the Royal Rumble 1999 where Vince McMahon, close up, is begging off from Steve Austin, and then someone launches a lemon and it hits him right in the side of the neck.
Wow. Well, I missed that. But throwing lemons, throwing rubber chickens, throwing T-shirts back in, that's one thing. I've talked about my Puerto Rican days. Brother, they would throw everything that wasn't nailed down. They would throw rocks, bottles. They'd take those plastic cups they would get drinks in, and they all played baseball year round, and they'd wad it up and they'd throw it. They'd throw glass. Man, it was dangerous. Just getting a lemon thrown at you, you get hit with it, yeah, it might hurt. But what if they threw a piece of glass and caught you in the eye, the ear, the neck? So this is me in Puerto Rico most of the time. And somebody said, when did you start wearing a poncho? That's when I started wearing a poncho in Puerto Rico, because it offered protection. Even on the way to the ring, I had a big hat, and the crowd's over here. I would turn my hat down to face the crowd, pull my poncho up, and I could hear the stuff. You could feel it hitting on that poncho. So if I hadn't had that poncho on, it'd be hitting me. So they would take the poncho back during the match. Now coming back, now they're just freshly rejuvenated and hated me more, but I didn't have anything to block it. I have walked to the dressing room and the guy would be beating my ass up and he'd be backing up because I would put his back to the crowd and go to the dugout. That's how we'd have to get out of the stadium.
I'm surprised you didn't start wearing a suit of armor like Lanny Poffo did.
Lanny was ahead of the curve.
And he was a babyface.
He was.
We're going to move on. SmackDown this past Friday, you were watching. Triple H comes out, whips up the crowd into a frenzy and goes, "Are you ready?" And then he goes, "We're going to bring out the draft again." And everybody goes, "Yeah."
That's what I did. I went, wait a minute. That's it? I thought he was going to talk about the sale of the company. And that's what everybody else thought. But he comes out there and talks about one of the most boringest things they can do, really, is a draft. I don't know how they're going to juice this thing up, because a draft does not interest me at all. I don't even know. I never understood it anyway. From the beginning, I kind of did. You were going to have the brands compete. And maybe at a WrestleMania, then you have the Super Bowl. Now you can do that. But he comes out, "Are you ready?" And the people, they were pumped. I thought he was going to talk about the sale of the company to Endeavor. And he was going to say what they were going to do or who was going to be in what position or whatever. But no, he just talked about the draft and talk about a letdown. That crowd just went flat and said, well, this is not what we expected.
What was, when you were in WWE, there was no draft. There was no brand extension, which I think people forget. Like between 2011 and 2016, or until mid-2016, there was no brand extension. And so one of my questions was, hey, did you know you were going to be drafted or whatever? It turns out, no, you didn't, because there was no draft whatsoever. I mean, like, how did it work then? Were you more likely to be on one show than the other at the time, or were you just...
I was always on... Excuse me. I was always on Raw and SmackDown. I was on both of them because they would tape Raw on a Monday night live. Then the second night, you would go to a town 150 miles away or whatever. Then you would tape SmackDown. And then you'd go home for a day or two, maybe. Then on Friday, you're back out on the road. We would work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday do Raw, and Tuesday do SmackDown. So it's 5 days every week on the road, which was really better than my WCW schedule because I went 64 straight days there without going home. That was brutal.
Did they book? Did you forget what I was going to ask? WCW, were they booking you on the road every single day to see if you would crack and quit?
No. They had towns. You know, to book people on the road costs money. You got to buy their tickets. But they made the talent pay for the cars and pay for the hotel rooms. As does WWE. Unless you're in the office, considered office, then they'll pick up your hotel room, they'll pick up your cars, they'll pick up your food. And that's what I had doing my last run with WWE, because they would pick up my hotel, they would pay for my car. They never told me about the food. I picked up my food. And that's why a lot of guys wanted to ride with me, because I didn't charge them anything. Because the company was paying for the car. I thought they just liked me. But I had a bunch of cheap bastards riding with me. No, but actually WWE, they treated me pretty good my 3 years that I was there.
This sort of goes on what we were talking about before. By the way, I've got this "You People Mean Nothing to Me" mug, which is not on sale. Oh, I just made myself one.
Really? You people mean nothing to me.
Yeah, it is a sweet mug, though. Look at that.
That was a very popular T-shirt.
With who?
What do you say when somebody says, "You people mean nothing to me," and you see it on a shirt? What would you think? Leave the guy alone, or would you like that saying? I mean, if you just saw it on somebody you didn't even know for the first time, what would you think?
I'd think, let's jump in the car with this guy because he's got free car rental, and but he doesn't know about the free food yet.
Oh yeah, well I found out about it, but
just going on what we were talking about Triple H before, there are conflicting reports with wrestling websites, and by conflicting reports I mean just people just making up a load of old horse shit to have a new webpage. But anyway, one website says for, one says against Triple H and his opinion on Roman Reigns holding 2 titles, and there's been suggestions here and there and everywhere for quite a while, but especially these last few months, that Triple H may split the heavyweight titles again. Your opinion?
Well, he can do what he wants to do, but if you put both titles on one guy, to me, that's not a good business decision, because you take away the ability to book 2 guys against each other for both belts. And what if that guy gets hurt? Your title holder in both versions of Raw and SmackDown is on the shelf. Now, they've made it a story that he's held both belts for 1,000 days or just one belt. Close to 1,000 days.
He unified the 2 belts at WrestleMania last year, but I think he's not held the WWE Championship for 1,000 days yet. But I think there's a theory that he's going for that number.
Well, this is another thing. Those belts confuse me. I don't know which one is what. What does Gunther have? The Universal?
He's got the Intercontinental. But the thing is, all the belts, I mean, that belt's so bland now that you might as well just have a great big coin on a leather strap. I miss the old designs, man.
Well, I think if you have more than 3 champions, I think you're you're like belting them to death, because eventually, and to me, all the belts run together. And it's hard for me to keep my story straight. And they're trying to tell me about it, but yet I'm missing it. Completely miss it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at here. So Roman Reigns has held the Universal Heavyweight title. I mean, they're both the same exact belt with a different colour on it. But anyway, he's held that one for 953 days. So, I mean, he'll probably get to 1,000, I'm sure. But I think the point is, should the company have two heavyweight championships of equal stature anyway? Why can't they just unify it and keep it unified?
Well, they have two brands, and I don't have anything against a brand having the champion, having a belt. One guy having it, I think is, well, it's not up to me. It's up to them. They can do what they want to do. But I think I'm like a lot of other fans out there. The belts are kind of meaningless to me now. Now, if they had one belt like they used to, the NWA belt, and the champion would travel around. And if you had a local guy, your local promotion, he gets a shot at Harley Race or Ric Flair or whoever, or Terry Funk, whoever the champion was then. Yeah, it meant something. It meant a lot. And it elevated the guy, whether he won or lost, because he went for the world's heavyweight title. If we had like two belts floating around then, it wouldn't have made sense. And it kind of makes sense now if you just don't listen. Don't think about this business too much. Don't overthink it, and then you'll be much, much better off.
Well, a lot of people don't overthink it.
Just take it for what it is and enjoy it. And if you don't like something, hey, don't think about it. Then you'll be safe.
I think the fans overthink the business, and the people within the business can sometimes be accused of underthinking it, or maybe Vince can,
No, I think they overthink it too.
Yeah.
The guys in the business, they think it. I've been around some guys, they would think it all day long, over and over and over and over, and it became like a sickness. They overthought the business. I'd have guys tell me, well, what do you think about this? And is that going to hurt me? And I said, brother, I don't know. It's not up to me. It's up to calm down. And I've seen guys over there and they're all so nervous, and I don't know. It's a job. And guess what? If it didn't work out, go get you another job. Guys just get way, way too carried away with it.
Next is, a couple of days ago, Dark Side of the Ring released a press release saying that Season 4 is upon us. They have given us, this is from the press release, over the 10-episode season. The series will explore stories like the emotional roller coaster of one of wrestling's most captivating and controversial couples, Chris Candido and Tammy Sitch, the car accident that derailed the career of future world champion Magnum TA, wrestling's most unhinged monster Abdul the Butcher, a focused look on the troubled life of Marty Jannetty, and much, much more. Are you in this series? I was thinking maybe for Abby, you might be.
Unfortunately, no.
Really?
No, you know why? I've said this before.
Go on.
I did the first season. Vice is a Canadian based out of Canada, based out of Toronto, I think. So when it came time for that second season, Evan Husney, he's a producer of it, he called me and he talked for a while because he had something to tell me, but didn't want to tell me. So I started to say, is there something you want to tell me that maybe I should know? And he said, yeah, well, listen, anybody that works on the show has to be a Canadian citizen, or we can't use them. And he says, you being an American citizen, we can't bring you on. And that only cost me like 30 grand. It's like saying, hey, we're going to give you 30 grand, but oh, no, wait a minute, we're going to take that back. We're not going to give it to you. So I cannot be used on any of the future shows of Dark Side of the Ring. because I'm not a Canadian citizen.
Oh, but as a talking head, you can be.
And what's that?
Sorry, which you found very what? Sorry.
Which I found what?
Oh, forget it. I'll say what I was going to ask. No, I meant as like a talking head rather than like as the narrator. Were you not interviewed maybe just for the Abbey episode? Maybe
I was, but that is just for that episode. But for this one, no, I was not interviewed for this one.
I see. And
that's a good thought. I could have been interviewed on all these things.
Yeah.
The Magnum TA accident, I was there. The Tammy Sitch and the Chris Candido, I was there in Smoky Mountain with them, and I was there with them in Puerto Rico, which that was a crazy, crazy story. And the Abdullah,
mm-hmm.
And what's the other?
Marty Jannetty.
And I was around him too. I had stories about all. You want to hear a quick Marty Jannetty story?
Yeah, I think we've heard one before. If it's the same one, I'll let you know.
The airplane?
Yeah, it was that one. Did he just bloop, just in some randomer's drink?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he didn't even know them. The fans recognized them, and it was two girls and a guy, I think. And I was sitting in the back with them, with Marty and Sean. And the plane wasn't very full, but these fans recognized them. And some of the listeners may have heard this. And oh yeah, it's like big fan day. And Marty was talking to him, and he was having a hell of a time. They were too. Till it came time to get off the plane. So, but I had moved up because I saw they were getting hammered, and I kind of figured something had happened. I didn't want to know, because ignorance is bliss. So I went up, and all of a sudden, we're all getting off the plane, and I stood up, and I was in the middle of the plane, and up comes Marty and Sean, and I saw them. They looked like they were passed out in the back. I went, wow, are they drunk? He said, brother. I said, are they going to get off? He said, well, yeah, eventually they will. And then we left, and they were still in the back. What had happened, he had drugged all three of them. And I think he said something like, I said, what happened? He went like this, like drop, drop. So, hey, I didn't want to know anymore. And I just got off the plane, and I've always worked under the auspices of, if you're not involved, then don't get involved. Just leave it where you found it and go.
Ooh.
So, but that was a story I could tell on Mr. Marty.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Magnum TA had his accident, he was upset about something I heard, and it had been raining that night, and he had bought a brand new, what did he buy?
Porsche, I think.
Something, a really powerful car. And he wasn't really going that fast, I heard. He just gunned it around, it had been raining that night, like I said. And he just lost control and wrapped it around a tree. He wrapped it literally around a tree. And I always liked Magnum. Magnum was always, and he was being groomed to be the heavyweight champion. Everybody knew that. And everybody liked him. I never heard anybody say anything bad about Magnum. Good guy. And then what were the other two? The Abdullah stuff? He's got tons of stories.
Yeah. And obviously Sonny and Chris Candido. I will ask you about the Puerto Rico story. I don't think we've ever hit on that one, but I will ask you that on a different episode. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sure everybody's desperate to know about that story, but just for the amount of stuff we've got to get through, and I know people are going to hate me for that, but I promise you we'll revisit that soon. We've got more news to talk about, and then we've got a lot of fan questions as well. So we're going to ask next about AEW booking Wembley Stadium in London for a big summer pay-per-view spectacular. Now, this isn't the original Wembley Stadium. That was knocked down in 2002, which is also famous in wrestling circles for hosting SummerSlam 1992, where they packed in nearly 80,000 people. And
WrestleMania, right?
No, SummerSlam.
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 It was SummerSlam.
It was SummerSlam,
wow.
yeah.
I didn't realize it had been around that long.
Well, I'll tell you what, right, because I think SummerSlam was 88, the first one, but that was the peak of wrestling fandom in this country, because when it started dying down in America in the early 90s, WWF wrestling was only a few years old in this country, and I think it bolstered WWF's business for several years, doing all these international tours in UK and Germany. And but to AEW, they've booked a 90,000-seat stadium for their UK debut. What do you think of that? And what number would they have to achieve for you to nod your head and go, not a bad number?
Well, it's a gutsy move. It really is. And I think, I don't know why I'm thinking this, I think they may sell it out.
Do you really?
Possibly. Because they did a number in Chicago one time before they even had TV. They sold out where the Bulls play. What's it called?
Is it the Rosemont?
No, the Rosemont's an old one, I think. But the stadium where the basketball team plays.
I'll find out. Sold that out. United Center.
United Center. Seats about 20-something. And that surprised me. It really did. But thinking of they're coming to the UK, is that their only show?
Good question. They may do some ancillary shows, but I think this is the only one that's been announced so far.
But I think they may sell it out. According to how much is AEW on TV there?
Yeah, they're on a better station than WWE as well. I think I don't have viewing figures, but it might be like 100,000 a week they get here. But it's on midnight or past midnight, and it's on like a niche cable station, as you would say.
Yeah, but they're on internet. I mean, a wrestling fan will search out wrestling on the internet, and when they come close, he'll probably go buy a ticket. But I think it's 60,000 and above, I would be impressed. Mm-hmm. And I would damn sure be impressed if they sold it out. Because Tony Khan, you say what you want to about him, but I think he kind of knows what he's doing in the promotion end of it. He understands that. Now, he may have a lot to learn about booking, but he can get by with that. I mean, sometimes, because he can look at WWE. Sometimes they do stuff that gets over, and sometimes, it's more the same. But 60,000, going back to your question, 60,000 and above, I would be highly, highly impressed.
Yeah,
Tony, if you need me, you got my number. Give me a call, and I'll give you my preferences.
Yeah. Dutch Mantell's last match.
Have you seen it? God, I hope so. That's an old joke. That's an old wrestling joke. Hey, did you see your last match? God, I hope so.
Well, we're going to presume there's actually probably going to be a capacity of less than 90,000. Wembley is for football, soccer, for you Americans listening. It's about 90,000, but then there's going to be seats on the pitch, but then there's going to be entrance and cameras and rigging and all that kind of thing as well. So it'll probably be less capacity than 90,000 if they're going to have a big old stage. But your opinion on what AEW would need to present to the UK fans to get that 60,000 tickets sold or plus? What do you think they have to bring to the table?
Well, they're going to have to bring some British personalities, make it look bigger. Who's your big soccer star there?
Oh, that's good. I mean, none of them are English. I don't know, round here, Phil Foden, or he's from my town, Stockport, so we'll say Phil Foden.
Well, they could bring... Okay, who's the British boxer? The heavyweight?
Tyson Fury. Or Anthony Joshua as well, I suppose.
Well, they could bring them. I mean, they're going to have to load it up. And some media personalities. Mm-hmm. Hey, you could be there.
I mean,
they could bring you in. Yeah, they could just say, hey, put us over on the show, and we'll bring you here and introduce you and give you $2,000 or whatever. Would you go for 2,000?
Yeah, why not? We could even do some cross promotion, Dutch. We could get some AEW personalities on here to sell a few tickets.
Yeah, we can do that. No, I think they'll do pretty good. I really do.
Yeah,
but UK, see, they love wrestling in the UK. Because it surprised me when I was over there, even when I went with TNA. TNA, what is the little smaller arena? What's that called?
I don't know. There's loads of them.
The U, the O, the U, the something.
The OU. Oh, the O2 state. The O2 arena in the Millennium Dome.
Well, TNA, they sold that out, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this wrestling over here is hot. And every show we would go to, even when in TNA, it sold out. Went to Manchester, sold out. And they got a big indoor arena, huge arena. And we did, TNA did well over there. It shocked me, to tell you the truth.
Just with staff for American wrestling here,
Well,
it's just how it is.
That's what I'm saying. Because when's the last time WWE went there?
I think they're getting back to the twice yearly tours. From 2004 onwards, they were doing twice yearly recordings of Raw and SmackDown here. They did that for years until COVID.
Well, the way they used to do it, right after WrestleMania and right after, I think, SummerSlam, or the week after that, you would go on the tour. Because they would give everybody a break in this country with no shows for 10 days. And then the talent would fly from wherever WrestleMania or SummerSlam, wherever it was, they would fly directly to Europe or to London and start the tour. And that is a grind, buddy. One time I went from LA to New York, then to London. And the time I got there, I was dead. And then they kicked us all off the plane.
Go on.
Because
Marty Jannetty wasn't on it, was he?
He was on it. I'm sure he was. I know Sean was on it. Marty may not have been on it. But this is when they had the click there. And I got on the plane with Bradshaw, and I knew these guys. And I said, I need to sit right back there. We were in first class. I sat right back in the corner so nobody could get behind me. And I told John, I said, what? John asked me, why you want to sit back here? I said, well, nobody can cut my hair or your hair because they'd have to, because somebody had their hair cut on that. I think Scott Hall had his hair cut by Savio, because Savio and Scott were always at each other. And they had a food fight. Everybody got drunk, took a bunch of pills, and they were throwing food into the first class cabin. And when we landed, when we got off, they all got us together. And as a gentleman, you cannot continue on. We had to go from London on to like Munich, and they refused to take us. They kicked us off. And I forgot who the agent was. I think it was Dave Hebner. And he got back in touch with Stanford, and they bought us all new tickets to go to Munich. And a bunch of guys got fined like $2,000 for that. But since me, remember my motto, don't get involved unless you need to get involved. I did not get involved in the food fight. Actually, in the cabin, they had a knife. Somebody threw a knife, and it was stuck into the wall of the first class compartment. They pulled the knife out, and I'm thinking, and that was, and you know who was on this flight too?
Go on.
Tammy and Sonny. Sonny, Tammy, and Chris. They were on it. And there's another story about that's when the food ended up in Tammy's that mysterious substance ended up in Tammy's food.
The old stink pickle.
Yep. And the next day I got up and Sonny was gone, already gone. And nobody knew who did that, but I have an idea who did it.
Waltman. Sean Waltman.
Yeah. They said he did it. But I think he finally admitted that, didn't he?
I think so as well. Hey, you said before, I've heard this very briefly once as well. Savio cut a bit of the mullet off Razor Ramon. Why?
Because Razor had done something to him. I think he got drunk and he shaved an eyebrow. Listen, these are 30-year-old guys acting like they're 14. That's what it is. And, it's here, and I'm much older than those guys even then. And I'm thinking, well, guys, wish you wouldn't do that. But, hey, not my business. Not my business. So I walked out.
Not your circus, not your monkeys.
No,
did you ever sleep on a plane, or did you just know to stay awake and not be messed with?
Well, I did not try to sleep unless I was back against the wall, but I knew who was on the plane. I knew it was we were tired. We were all tired, and I knew they was going to be slamming it down. So they were going to get drunk. I actually expected a few fights. It's what I expected. But we didn't get that, but we did get the hair cutting, the knife in the wall, getting kicked off the plane. I've never been kicked off a plane before, but I got kicked off by association. So I had to take the punishment along with the ones who did it. And of course, I never got any of the blame because that wasn't my reputation. Again, the usual suspects is who, if you have trouble on a plane and you say, all right, who was on the plane? Okay. Talk to them first, because it was the usual suspects. But Savio surprised me, but he got tired of Razor's messing with him. And he said he got back at him. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, well, why didn't they fight? Listen, Razor Ramon, he wouldn't want to fight Savio. Savio was a tough son of a bitch. Tough. So, but again, I'd be kind of afraid to fight Scott myself, since he killed that guy outside that bar that time. Mm-hmm. But anyway, those are the people I work with.
I remember
all my life, basically.
I remember Mike Chioda told me once, the referee just said, this was on the famous plane ride from hell, and he just went, I didn't see anything. I had my sunglasses on at all times, because if someone was going to shave my eyebrows, they'd have to take the sunglasses off first to do it, which was a good idea. Did anyone do the old shaving cream turban affair?
I don't think so. But they were mostly acting like kids, throwing food, a food fight. Food was all over the walls. It was a mess. And when they told us they weren't going to take us to Germany, I think it was Munich, if we were going somewhere, they brought police around too, in case we had a problem. All the police were standing there while they told us. And they said, either get a flight back to America or find your own way. And I think we were on United or American, one of those airlines, but they refused to take us. Now, we use those airlines a lot, or WWE does. If we had been banned from even flying on those airlines, which I don't think WWE would have been banned because they spend too much money with them, that would have been a tough thing to work around. A travel ban, a travel ban on a national carrier. I don't know how we would have gotten there, or in a lot of other towns for that matter. But anyway, it happened, and I was there.
Hey, and a good story was had as well.
What was the story about Abdullah they're going to tell?
Oh God, I don't know. They didn't even say in the press release. We'll when it comes out, we'll watch it and we'll do a good old review on it, I think. I've got two more bits of news. These were ones from about a month ago. Then we will ask some fan questions. Jeff Gaylord died at the age of 64 a couple of weeks ago, as I wrote this several weeks earlier, after according to his brother, a short illness. Now, we talked about Jeff once before as sort of a really terrible bank robber, and also maybe a wrestler who didn't really sort of achieve what he could have done was with his physical gifts that he was bestowed upon him. Now, this is what else I've written weeks ago. By his own account, he did every steroid known to man. He went on a 5-month cocaine binge that fried his brain during his American football playing days, then turned to pro wrestling after suffering a major knee injury where he debuted in 1985. He appeared for Bob Geigel, Bill Watts, UWF, WCCW, USWA, and also made an appearance under a mask as one of Shawn Michaels' Knights at the 1993 Survivor Series pay-per-view. He was mid-card at best for these promotions, despite having a good look and athletic experience. He then went on to become a bank robber, doing 6.5 years during one stretch after robbing the same bank twice. He did further stints in prison following more bank robberies, finally being released in 2015. I've got one more thing to say about old Jeff, but memories of Jeff for you.
Well, you mentioned the part where he fried his brain.
Mm-hmm.
When I met him, his brain was fried. But he was really, really a friendly guy because he was never aggressive. He was always very friendly. And almost when you talk to him, almost childlike in a lot of ways. I remember watching him one night in Memphis, and he always acted goofy. I mean, in his normal state. And he was going to jump off the top rope at the Mid-South, and the house was horrible. You know, you put 2,000 people in a building in that 11,000-seat Memphis Coliseum, Mid-South. It looks empty. They'll say, and you could shoot a shotgun off into place and not hit nobody. That was a good description of the Mid-South Coliseum. But I watched, and he went to the ring. And he was effed up when he went to the ring, and he was trying to climb to get up there on the top rope, and he was off balance, and he finally climbed and got turned around on the rope, and he got up there and he spread his arms out like this, like he's going to jump, and he went whoa, 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 and he fell off the top rope to the floor. And it didn't hurt him. You know, that's like a 10-foot fall from just the feet. Probably a 13 or over a 13-foot fall for the rest of his body. And he got up and he just looked at the people, and they were rolling. And he got back in the ring and finished the match. And he came back. Nobody said anything to him about it. He just came and sat down and took his boots off, took a shower, and left. And that's about the only thing I can really remember about Mr. What do we call him?
Mr. Gaylord. Well, calling him because it was his name. I mean,
yeah, we had
the Missouri
Gaylord,
Tiger or something, was it?
That was it. Somebody said Great Match Tiger. That's what I was trying to remember. But he did another thing too, where, and I've never heard of this in my life. And I think you mentioned it there when he punched Eddie Gilbert.
Yep, I'll read out what it says. Gaylord also sucker punched Eddie Gilbert in a dressing room in the early 1990s, and a $1,000 paid hit in a Global Wrestling Federation locker room, allegedly at independent promoter Gordon Scozzari's behest, due to Gilbert no-showing an event of his. Observer and Slam Wrestling's obituaries also make mention that Gaylord had a bad reputation in locker rooms and for being a locker room thief.
Oh, yeah, he did. He really did. He was just, some of the characters that were in wrestling, when you talk about them, people don't believe you. They went, nah, that can't happen. They wouldn't. But yeah, he had some sticky fingers, and rings would be missing, and money would be missing. And
got rings? Yeah, you don't mean wrestling rings, do you?
No. I'm not rings. Rings. The rings would be missing, but if nobody saw him take anything, there's no way to prove it. he wasn't going to own up to it. So all I could say was, well, you're out of a ring. And there was a few things missing back when I knew Jeff, but nobody could pin it on him. But he did have that reputation.
We will move on to one more bit of news, and I'm sorry, everybody, this is going to involve me doing a lot of talking. Brett DiBiase. Now, this is the son. Apparently, his real name's Dale as well, so I don't know where Brett came from. So this is something that actually happened last month, but I want to bring it up because it's a serious issue, and it's actually a big news story that actually involves NFL. I don't know if he's quarterback, but he was a big NFL star.
Yeah,
Brett
NFL.
Favre. Anyway, so this is from Mississippi Today. Brett DiBiase, a former professional wrestler and son of WWE's $1 Million Man, pleaded guilty Thursday to a new federal charge that involves his brother Teddy DiBiase Jr. as an alleged co-conspirator. The plea signals that DiBiase may act as a witness in the federal government's ongoing investigation into the Mississippi welfare scandal, in which officials misspent or stole tens of millions of federal welfare funds under the administration of former Governor Phil Bryant. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. While Teddy DiBiase has not been formally charged, federal authorities hinted they were zoning in on the older brother when they attempted to seize his $1.5 million Madison home in 2020. Teddy DiBiase was also included as an alleged co-conspirator in the bill of information that former welfare director John Davis pleaded guilty to in September. Now, to boil all this down for everybody, it's a very complex case. Brett DiBiase and the family were brought into the administration of Mississippi's welfare program and temporary assistance for needy families program for, and this is a quote again from the article, employee training and motivational speaking, opioid abuse awareness, youth mentoring, development of a phone app to track teens, and workforce development. While they received payments up front, many of the programs never came to fruition. Now, we're talking nearly $100 million of federal money that's gone to what supposedly go to the most needy in is it the poorest state in the union, Mississippi as well?
Mississippi, yes it is.
Yeah, and so I'm sorry, I've got more to read to you before you jump in. The prosecutors have called these contracts shams, and the entire program has long been accused of being a scam, where federal funds are diverted from their intended goal and put in the pockets of wealthy benefactors. Aside from the DiBiase family, the most high-profile benefactor is the former NFL star Brett Favre, who, it's alleged, received a seven-figure sum for speeches he never gave, $5 million for an indoor football facility, another seven-figure sum for the construction of a volleyball arena that coincidentally his daughter played in, and $2.15 million that went toward a pharmaceutical company that, coincidence upon coincidence, Favre was a major investor in. Brett DiBiase and former executive director of Mississippi Department of Human Services John Davis, who worked directly under Bryant, the governor, are the only people to be charged with federal crimes so far, but the FBI currently has Teddy DiBiase in the sights to potentially charge him in the near future. John Davis hired Brett DiBiase in 2017 to a six-figure-a-year job, and I'm laughing because I know what's coming up. Despite Brett not being qualified for the role, Teddy DiBiase, despite not being an employee of the state, occupied one of the largest offices in the Mississippi Department of Human Services. Brett is being sued for $824,000 for services he did not perform, but he did allegedly receive $160,000 from Davis to house him in a luxury rehab facility in Malibu for 4 months to tackle his painkiller addiction, and that's not for the first time that he's had to go to rehab. Prosecutors even have a text exchange between Brett and Davis where Brett asked what the name of the non-profit he worked for was called. While Ted and that's amazing, isn't it? While Ted and Teddy,
is amazing. Only a wrestler could do this.
Oh, and it's written down as well. It said both improperly. This is Ted Sr. and Teddy Jr. received funds improperly, totaling around $5 million for the family, which makes up a sizable chunk of the money that make up part of the state's biggest fraud case in history. Brett faces up to $250,000 in fines and up to 5 years in federal prison. I'm sorry for all that reading, everybody, but it's a long story. Dutch, your thoughts?
Can we say guilty? Can we say guilty?
He's already pled guilty. Yeah.
I heard about this 5-6 years ago. The wheels of justice turn slowly. And I mean, I can't even begin to imagine some of the things that they've done. They cannot have all this information because they had to undergo state audits. Where is this money? Where did this money go? And I don't know where it went.
It went straight into Someone's pocket. It always does.
But if I think Ted, he could possibly go to jail. Hate to say that. I like Ted.
Senior or junior?
His son.
Yeah.
Well, I like all of them. I don't know the kids that well, but I know Teddy pretty decently. I think he may go to jail or have to pay off a ton of money. So if he has to pay off a ton of money, I can see I can see him going back on the revival trail and doing revivals all over the South, taking big money, taking offerings for people to give to Christ. And I don't know. But I do think there is a lot of underhanded stuff going on here. The guy Davis, he had to be aware of this too. I mean, who would send somebody to Hawaii to a rehab center? Don't they have rehab centers in Mississippi?
It was Malibu, actually, but much of a muchness in this case.
Oh, it's in California. It was in California. But that's just part of it. And Mississippi is a poor state. I'm sure they do have some drug addicts there that could actually benefit from these programs. But it's a state program. Graft is nothing they're unaware of. And I want to see what happens in this case. Did they just get mad at the DiBiases? Or are they just mad about what? But something has to break on that. Now, I had thought up to like a year ago, they had settled this. I mean, when it goes off the news, the national cycle, and I didn't check local news in Mississippi, but I hadn't heard anything about it. So I thought it was all, they paid a fine or they did this or did that, but it's ongoing. They haven't even had a civil trial yet, right?
No.
This would be civil and criminal.
It would indeed, yeah.
Both. So I think the future doesn't look good for the DiBiases, the father or the son.
Brett is looking at the business end of potentially $250,000 in fines and up to 5 years in jail.
Well, 5 years. 5 years for the amount of money they're talking. 5 years doesn't seem to be the right amount of time. I think it would be more. Now, I don't know anything about law, but 5 years is a gift almost. Even the $250,000 is a gift. Because they say he stole how much money?
Something like
$100 million?
No. In total, that was $100 million in misappropriated funds. The DiBiase family were looking at around $5 million, and Brett personally, what was it, about $824,000 personally that he's on the hook for? Well,
good luck, but that is taxpayer dollars. That is, people paid it in good faith, and graft is not. It's not new to government. Other people do it, but this is making the news. And it would make the news anyway, whether they were wrestlers or not, because that's a lot of money, and it's a strong local story in Mississippi, as it should be. But Teddy found the Lord. You know that, right?
Yeah.
He's an evangelist. And now, let me tell this quick story. All of a sudden, Ted finds the Lord. Now, he found the Lord after he got caught with this mistress. And then he went for rehab, and he admitted that he was a sex addict. That's the only reason that he had this woman, I guess. And then all of a sudden, he goes out and starts doing revivals. And yeah, Teddy DiBiase was a big wrestling star, not only in the United States, but in Mississippi especially. So when he came to a local church that had like a a 2,000 congregation number. Yeah, they sold it out. It'd be packed. When they pass that plate, people throwing 20 and 10s and sometimes 50 and maybe 100. There's no telling how much money he made off that, which is not reportable.
Mm-hmm.
Are the
tax-free
amount? I don't think it's. And if it is reportable, I'm sure that the total sum of the donations was never put down on paper to be looked at by the Internal Revenue. There's no telling how much money, and I call it scamming. And this is when I first got my first thought of how organized religion is like professional wrestling. It's the same deal. You have a building. Wrestling has an arena. Religion has a church. You have your believers. They come and sit down. Instead of buying tickets, they take donations. And how many times you think that donation plate goes around? About 3 times.
Really?
It goes around about 3 times. Oh, yeah. I've been to some of those Southern revivals. And then they have music. It's a spectacle. You have stars. Like wrestlers, a wrestling show has its wrestling stars, but religion has God, it has Jesus. They have the New Testament, and the preacher. Oh yeah, and the preacher preaches out of a book that tells him what to say. And Ted DiBiase getting up there, he's a great talker. So they got a show. That is, to me, the connection between organized religion, revivalist religion, and pro wrestling. It's the same thing, if you really think about it.
You've got to talk them into the building, Dutch. That's
God does that. Jesus does that. Christians will come. Give them a reason to believe, and they'll always believe. You give them a reason to disbelieve. And Teddy never gave them that. And I heard some of his revivals were great. Then guess who got into it?
Jake did.
Jake the Snake. Now, brother, I would actually pay $100 to go see a Jake the Snake revival. I really would. And then guess who else got into it? Tully Blanchard.
Oh,
Tully
I guessed
Blanchard.
it right as well.
Yeah, Tully got into it.
Did you ever see Buddy Landell? He was a preacher.
And Buddy Landell. Oh my God. Buddy Landell used to preach at me up and down the road between hits of cocaine. He'd be preaching the New Testament to me, and I'm looking at him like, buddy, please. And doing like 100 miles an hour. He bought a Mercedes one time. Now, it wasn't a new one. And Buddy would say, well, it ain't new, but by God, it's a Mercedes. He's trying to be Ric Flair, is what he's trying to be. And he actually burned the transmission out of it one night when he did 100 miles an hour in second gear, or in not drive, but he put it down in second. And because he had burned his transmission up, and that's the only way it would drive in second gear. He didn't have that car much longer after that. It just finally broke down on him. But I love Buddy, great guy. But he just had the drug problem.
I love that you said.
Hey, I've been around some. Since you brought it up, I've been around some real winners, buddy. But they're really, really memorable. They really are.
With where you just said that, well, it wasn't a new Mercedes; it was second-hand.
But it's
Buddy Landell was a second-hand Ric Flair in presentation as well.
Well, Buddy got fired right at the time they were going to put the belt on him.
Yeah.
They were going to take it off Rick. And he used to tell me these stories. Now, I thought it was the cocaine talking. I went, shut the fuck up, buddy. I mean, in a nice way. He said, no, man, no. And he was telling me all this. But then when they got ready to put the belt on him, he went on a binge again and failed to show up for TV. That's when Dusty was there. I don't know what year this was, but he had it all handed to him. And he had J.J. Dillon as a manager. They had him set to go. But Buddy has always been his own worst enemy. And he died when did he die? About 5 or 6 years ago?
Something like that. I'll look.
7. Because his daughter, and I knew his 2 daughters, one had gotten killed, I think, in a accident. And he just didn't want to go on anymore. He was way back in the hills of Virginia somewhere. What's it say?
2015, you were right. About 8 years ago.
And then he just went off. And how did he die? Suicide.
I will Wikipedia it. It says Landell was involved in a car crash. He was hospitalised and reportedly checked himself out against doctors' wishes. Eventually returning to his home in, is it Chilhowie, Virginia? He told his wife down he was feeling bad, and then he died in his sleep.
Yep. But I think he wanted to die. But anyway, rest in peace, buddy. I love that guy.
Just to wrap up the whole thing with Ted DiBiase is, first off, he's does the old Lloyds of London scam. Then he gets into preaching. Then this whole Mississippi thing, misappropriation of millions of dollars.
See, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And if somebody said, would you ever think that Ted DiBiase would be involved in something like this? And I would look at him and I'd say, you got to be kidding. No, really? But
there we go. We
see, wrestlers think everything is a work. That's what they think, and they'll never get caught. But
are you ready for some fan questions, Dutch?
Yep, let's go at them.
Let's do it then. Brian Turner. In fact, just before I actually say this, I'm sorry, everybody. We are going to get to your questions. I've just email inbox full of questions because we've not done this for about 4 weeks. We will get to more of your questions, I promise you. Brian Turner, Georgetown, Kentucky. Hi, let me start by saying how much I love watching you guys every week, and the reason being is that in my early teens in Southern Kentucky on up through college, I was a full-blown diehard Memphis fan. Now, he's given a big, long, old story in the email, but it's too long, so I'm not going to read it. Essentially is, I have to ask Dutch, what are his memories of this polite yet wild barbarian Sabu? As I believe he would later do an angle with him when Sabu became the Black Ninja, at least I think that was his name. Thanks for the trips down memory lane, and keep up the good work.
Well, Sabu, I don't remember him being in Memphis.
Briefly he was, with Rob Van Dam, like 92 or something.
Well, I don't remember that. And the reason I don't remember it, I'm going to tell you, because 92 was the year that Memphis was dying. So it wasn't worth my time to go to a town, because sometimes I would actually not lose money, but I wouldn't make any much. So I just rather sit at home. And I don't remember being there in 92 very long. I think
91, actually, I just looked it up. So you were still in WCW for the first half of the year then?
May have been.
Yeah.
See, those were my turbulent times. That's when the business was undergoing a change, because WWE had run all the moms and pops, I call it mom and pop territories, out of business. And you didn't make any money unless you worked for WCW or WWE. The independents were there, but they didn't pay any money, especially down south. And Sabu and Rob Van Dam probably only went to Memphis because that was the only place they could probably get booked at that time.
Yeah, probably.
Because they were just starting out. So, and I remember Rob a little bit, but I didn't get to know him well at all because I didn't travel with any of those guys. So I don't remember it.
I'm going to apologize to you, Dutch, because occasionally you can probably see me grimacing. It's me moving my leg around. I'm just occasionally going like that. Anyway, we'll move on. You will remember this then. Sorry, Brian. I know trips down memory lane, but we provided you with no trip down memory lane. KTB. Some years ago, you and Matt Hardy had somewhat of a Twitter spat over Matt's attempts to gain the broken copyright from Impact Wrestling after Matt and Jeff left to return to WWE. Did you think they have a case? And what do you think of Reby Hardy going on a Twitter rant meltdown, calling you Jeff Jarrett's puppet?
The shame. Well, I met Reba. I call her Reba. I met her one time. I guess she's a nice lady, I guess. But Matt, thinking that he can come up with a gimmick in a territory or in a company, unless he has paper on the broken gimmick, then it belongs to the company. It becomes their intellectual property. I thought everybody knew that except Matt. And I don't think it was a problem with him taking it because he's tried it a couple other places. I don't get it anyway. I've never gotten the delete. I don't get it. What does that mean?
I never watched Impact at that time. I didn't see that thing where what was it like, the broken fight at the end?
I never understood it. You know who came out the other day and said they didn't understand it? Brian James. I didn't get it. Delete. He was a broken. Apparently, Matt Hardy was broken. Okay, you're broken. Now, what's the story? But I never got the story. So anyway, I just told Reba, calm down, Reba, take care of the kids and leave me alone or something like that. And then she come back to, oh, now you're attacking mothers and women. And I could give her a bunch more names to call me, but I just cut off communication with her.
Your response here was, oh, Reby, be nice, calm down. Think of your baby. Love you guys. And then a lot of hearts and owl emojis.
Oh, yeah. And, she went off on that. So you just got to trigger them just a little bit and then let them self-destruct. And she did.
Yeah. I like the whole, like, right at the end, you just killed her with kindness slightly more, which just annoys people even more.
Well, I didn't have anything against her. And she defended Matt, which I can understand that. But then again, don't involve yourself in something that you're not involved in. And I didn't say anything about Matt. I just answered a question. It's almost now in America that if you opine, you like that word? If I opine an opinion, oh my God, you become target practice.
I'm I did report on sec. Okay, I can't find the name of the damn thing. It was like the broken. Anyway, it was Matt versus Jeff, and it was on the farm in West Virginia. But did you see that at the time?
No. Hell, I may have been there and didn't see it. Because I tell you, there are big chunks of time that I just write off. They make no sense. They make no creative sense. And I just wrote a bunch of this stuff off. I don't remember it, nor do I want to remember it.
And the story...
Hey, you know what I just noticed? What I just noticed?
Go on.
A picture on your wall is crooked.
Oh, I'll deal with that later.
Okay.
Is that why you don't have the Three Dutches picture in the background this week, so no one can notice if it's crooked or not?
So where is it? No, it's the way I got this. I think it's just good. There it is. See there? It's just the way the camera is.
Yeah, just to follow up on the Matt thing, it says on January 31st, 2018, the legal battle officially concluded when Matt legally acquired ownership of all trademarks related to the Broken Universe and the Broken Gimmick, which includes Broken Matt, Brother Nero, Broken Brilliance, and Vanguard 1. Great. Next question. Water, Sundown. Did you ever heard what the story behind Hogan's black eye was at WrestleMania 9? He said it was a jet ski incident, but many believe that Randy Savage punched him before the event. You weren't there at WWF, there's a couple of years before you get there, but did you ever hear the story?
Never heard the story. I don't know what happened to him. Probably somebody punched him.
I asked Beefcake and he says it was a jet ski accident, so that's all I've got to go on. We'll move on. Jimmy...
But you asked who? Brutus?
Brutus, yeah. He said he was there when...
But I thought he was the only one that got hurt in that ski accident.
No, that was a parasailing accident. That was a different incident. That was a few years earlier.
A different one.
Yeah.
They need to stay off the water.
Yeah, and the beach. In fact, Brutus wasn't even on the water. He was on the beach, and a woman just kneed him full force in the face when the parasail sort of just went doolally, and then she ended up crashing onto the beach and into his face.
Wow. Did he sue her? She was probably covered by Lloyds of London.
maybe she was on Ted DiBiases' policy.
Probably.
We will move on. Jimmy Mellon, good afternoon, Dutch. I was just wondering if you had any insights to the infamous Doug Gilbert promo, where he basically exposed Brian Christopher as being Lawler's son, accused Randy Hales of smoking crack, and accused Jerry Lawler of messing with a 13-year-old girl. Do you know if there were any repercussions to Doug Gilbert's actions? Love listening to the podcast.
Well, I do think Lawler got really, really mad at him. Randy Hales got really, really mad at him because he went out there and it was a shoot interview. And I don't know why they just didn't cut him off. But that was, Memphis used to do a 90-minute show. An hour of it, 60 minutes of it would be for the rest of the territory. And the other would be just for Memphis. I think this just aired in the Memphis version.
This was late. This was like late 90s. This, I think this was actually post USWA. This might be like Power Pro Wrestling.
But it may have been the same setup though.
Yeah.
It may be the same setup for TV because 90-minute shows, you don't get 90-minute shows anymore because you only got 60-minute shows. And they would do 90 minutes for Memphis and only 60 for the rest of the territory. But when I heard that, I wasn't there, but I heard it, and I was highly entertained by that because I bet the control room went nuts. Lance went nuts. They all went nuts because I think Doug was hanging onto that mic. So if they cut him off, it would be obvious they cut him off, but I liked the content of it. I wouldn't want him to say it about me, but
what was Doug's issue? How come he just decided to do this one day?
Well, it dates back to Eddie Gilbert, and we should talk about him one day because Lawler was one of his heroes, and Jerry Lawler was the other one. And I used to watch some of his matches sometimes. And one night he'd be Terry Funk. Exactly. He'd do the walk and he'd fall over. And then one night he'd be Jerry Lawler. Almost exactly. So those were his two heroes. And I think Eddie had gotten mad at Lawler and Randy Hale because they wouldn't book him or something, but they would book Doug. So Doug went out there, he got mad about it, and Doug and Eddie were very close, and Doug just defended him on TV. But I think in the wrong way. But that's one of the things that happens in wrestling. Do you have that interview?
I could find it.
Yeah, well, we might need to show it one day.
Okay, let's pause. I'll find it. Okay, I've found it. I don't know if we're going to get great results from this because we've not seen it, but let's play.
You know what, Dave? Who should I blame? Where should the blame start? Well, you know where it's going to start, Brian Christopher? It's going to start tonight at the New Daisy Theater because you know what? You're getting out of your environment and you're getting into mine. What you're going to do is you're going to climb in to 5 strands of barbed wire wrapped around the ring.
Shall I skip ahead a minute?
Understand what that means. Listen.
It's actually a pretty good interview.
You know what? Talking about him coming out here, Brian Christopher wants to come out here and play Doug Gilbert. Brian Christopher, if I was you, I would want to play Doug Gilbert every week because you never got over. Listen, let me tell you one thing, boy. And listen, you do not talk about my family. You do not talk about me. Listen, you want to play that family card? He wants to play the family card. You think he wants to play that card with me? Oh, made Brian, that card could hurt you so bad. Listen, son, I'm out on the street.
We need to.
And people say,
speed up.
Gilbert,
it's a good interview.
Why was Brian Christopher dragging them 4 or 5 belts around that little red wagon? Oh, he was so successful here in Memphis, Doug. He was so successful. I'm going to forward it. You can take the things that happen. That's fine. He can act like me all he wants. I don't care. But when he comes out here and you're going to be disrespectful to my mom or my dad. You know what? That little thing in your ear there, Dave, that some people were talking to you from upstairs, I think maybe you should have said it's time to go to break. See, I'm not holding any one person responsible for what I'm saying. See, Randy Hills is upstairs with his hand on that little button that could cut me off. See, Randy, if I start saying something again that I shouldn't about you running down the road smoking crack.
That's not true. That's not true.
Oh, yeah, Dave, it is true, and Randy Hills has confessed.
Well, now let me tell you what we can do. You have a point. You have a point.
Okay, we got to the smoking crack bit. That was something.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go. So.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Was that a morning show as well?
It was at 11 o'clock in the morning when it started. But after I see it, and when now I think it may have been set up. But does he talk about Lawler and a young girl?
Somewhere in that, but I think it's just too long a video for us to be hunting it out. I mean, if I thought about it, I would have edited some highlights together, but yeah.
Yeah. But it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay, we will move on then. Travis, what did you think when Samoa Joe started painting a tribal dick on his face in TNA in 2009? Thanks, guys, and love the show.
Who's Travis?
Just
that's guy. From Travis?
Yes.
Oh. So it was a tribal dick?
Yes. Do you remember
How can
this?
wait a minute, I don't know the difference between a tribal dick and a native dick. Is there a difference?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just get a photo up for you. 1 second. This is for you, Dutch. Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay, that's for the audience at home. There you go.
Well, I heard he told everybody it was an alligator's mouth. It looked like trying to chomp down. Look at it again.
Oh, do I have to? Pardon me. Get it up again, do I? There you
get
go.
It up. Get it up again.
There you go.
Yeah, he said that's an alligator's mouth. Oh my God. A tribal penis.
Did anyone in the office maybe suggest that to him, or maybe suggest that he not wear that?
I never heard about it. I heard about it maybe a little later. He wore that on TV, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Nothing wrong with it.
Bob from New Zealand. Has Dutch ever booked or seen someone book something that they thought was going to get over and for some reason the crowd rejected it, or it just didn't work? Perhaps in his early booking years, did he work out the reasons why it didn't work? I'm a huge fan of the podcast and love your insights. Also, did you ever work New Zealand or Australia?
Never worked New Zealand, never worked Australia. Actually, I've never even been there. Have people booked something that didn't get over? Just watch WWE. That's all you got to do, because they booked a lot of things that wouldn't get over. Even back in the glory days, sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the good things they keep, the bad things. Let's take an example. Maximum Male Models. I called it from the time I saw it. I says, that is destined for failure. And they kept it around for about a month. Didn't get any traction. Here's another one. Zeb Colter managing Alberto Del Rio. It was destined for failure from the first time I walked through those gates in Los Angeles with and brought out Del Rio. I knew it was going to die.
Specifically, have you booked something that you just thought, this is a surefire hit, and the crowd just farts on it?
No, I don't think so. Because I put a lot more. I listened to the fans, and they would tell me what they wanted, and I just had to give it to them. So if you're listening to, like somebody saying, Daddy, 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 I want this Christmas present. Will you get it for me? Will you get it for me? That's what I was giving them. Because with two guys, they create an uproar with the crowd, or the crowd seems to like them. I'm going to do more with those guys because the crowd has already told me that, they connect to both these guys. all these tag teams or whatever I had. So if you listen to the crowd, instead of trying to force feed them what I think they would like, I make them tell me first, then I give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yep. Further on in this fella's question, he mentions a few names of wrestlers in Australia and New Zealand who made an impression on him. He mentioned Steve Rickard, Mark Lewin, Al Perez, King Curtis, Rick Martel, Tony Garea. Have you got any stories about... Let me see who I'm going to pick out there. King Curtis Ayakea.
Never met him.
You're kidding. I thought you would have met him loads in Florida.
Never met him. While I was there, never met him, never shook his hand. I've never even been around him at all. And that was one of because they were, and I don't have any stories, just the ones I've heard, that he was just a wild man. And Mark Lewin, I've heard, I met him, and I never heard many crazy stories about him, but he liked to train. Oh, he trained like a madman. And I met him in Florida because he was a friend of Kevin Sullivan's. But I never heard any bad stories about him at all.
We will move on then. The Beard of Zeus asks, you briefly referred to and rolled your eyes at the memory of working with Johnny Fairplay. Were you not a fan then?
No, well, it's not that I'm not a fan, but Johnny Fairplay, he was a fan who got into the business, and he didn't really know what he was getting into, nor did he know the protocol and even common courtesy, because you couldn't do anything with him. He wasn't a wrestler. He just he walked off the street from that show. What was the show he was on? Survivor?
Yeah.
And I think Dixie Carter liked him, or somebody liked him, and they brought him to TNA. Very difficult to be creative with him because he was so limited, and even his interviews. I think that's probably what got him over in Survivor. I never saw him on Survivor because I didn't watch the show. But needless to say, we didn't draw any money or really hardly any interest in Johnny Fairplay when he was in TNA.
Do you? I actually wrote this down for you, but do you remember how much his appearance fee was?
Well, probably over $2,000.
$2,600 per appearance. Supposedly, he was a nightmare for creative as well, you and Jeff, because he just refused to do stuff.
Well, he thought he was a star. And when you would ask him to, or tell him, and he would push back on it. Again, I'm going to go back to one of my main themes during this podcast here.
Ted DiBiases.
Don't get involved in something unless you want to be involved further. When I saw how Johnny Fairplay wanted to play ball, because I didn't bring him in. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. So I left him to the other trainers and I walked away. Now I would help out if he would have been a little bit more helpful. We may have done something with him, but we had nothing to work with to begin with. Just because he's on Survivor does not mean that he fits a wrestling show. And I think Dixie was a fan of the show and brought him on.
Are you saying that people who are on Survivor, like Jenna Maraska and Johnny Fairplay, had no business being in the wrestling profession?
Why would I say that? I have no idea. But so that was our two contacts with Survivor, and both of them were duds.
Roddy Piper also apparently really hated Johnny Fairplay because at one point Johnny Fairplay was his assistant and he crashed the car. Do you remember hearing the story at the time?
I remember hearing the story.
Go on, tell me.
I do. Well, apparently, I think Johnny drove him around And then they were going somewhere, and like you said, they had a crash. And I don't know what, that's all I heard about, but I do know that Piper did not hold Johnny Fairplay in high esteem at all.
I don't blame him. Next question, another question from Down Under, Peter from Western Australia. G'day, Dutch. Who was the best and worst jobbers in your time?
I'll tell you, the best jobbers were the Mulkey brothers. That's where, watching the Mulkey brothers, they got over getting the dog shit beat out of them because they had to be the toughest jobbers around, and nice guys too. I watched them with the Road Warriors. Oh, it was just a feast of brutality. Of course, the Mulkeys eating all of it up. But those were the best guys I'd ever seen just for jobbers. And that's where I got my idea for the loser gimmick, because they got over in reverse. So I said, what if you made an angle out of this? A guy keeps getting beat. Now you make an issue out of it. And I've done it in Florida, and I did it in Memphis, and I did it in Puerto Rico. It never fails. Takes you about 3 weeks to get it going. But once it gets going, now the people catch on to the gimmick, and they start adding to it, and which means it works better. But they were the best jobbers. The worst jobbers.
Just before you get to the worst, the Mulkey brothers. Do you remember? Were you there at the time in NWA when they were building up to their big match with the Midnight Express, and like weeks of television was dedicated to them?
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I was hearing about it, and I wasn't really watching the show that much. Where did they have the match?
It was in the Mulkeys' hometown. I can't think of what the hometown was called.
I don't know.
Harlan, Kentucky or something. I don't know.
I thought it was I thought they were from North Carolina.
Bear with me. I've spelt the Milky Brothers as well. I've dropped my phone as well. Let me just pause one sec. All right, back recording again. Sorry, everybody. I couldn't find it. I asked the Echo, and it said St. Louis, and that didn't sound right. You were about to tell me the worst jobbers or jobber that you ever wrestled.
Well, it's not that I ever wrestled. But I wrestled a lot of kind of bad ones.
Maybe like
that's kind of why they were jobbers.
like a professional jobber who worked week in, week out.
Really, the professional jobbers were actually good. I mean, you could do things with them. But just the jobbers they pull off the independents, I don't even know where they found some of these guys. They have a match somewhere. It was with Sid Vicious, Dan Spivey, where they wrestled this guy in his hometown, and he decided that he wasn't going to sell these two big guys, and he didn't, and they beat the living shit out of him. They made him, he wanted to do some, because he was his family was there, his mother, his father, his brothers, sisters. So he went out there, and he thought they would work with him a little bit, but they didn't. Of course, they didn't speak about this at all in the back, which I know Sid and Spivey would have vetoed anything as a guy looking good. That's not what the purpose of the match was. The purpose of the match was to get Sid and Spivey looking like killers. And the guys, it's on YouTube somewhere. You don't have to look for it now, but he's probably the worst one I ever saw.
Yeah, in fact, if you put Sid, Dan Spivey, I think he's called Blackheart, Rodney Blackheart, something like that. Oh, excuse me. I'm actually watching our own video on my own phone. The first thing that comes up is our video of us watching it. Mike Blackwell, he was called. I think we've got 3 more. I think we actually might be able to squeeze in a couple more. So, Bradley, hello, Dutch. What are your thoughts on Fritz von Erich, the Von Erich family, and world-class championship wrestling? Did you ever even consider working there in WCCW?
Well, I did go down there one time for about 3 weeks. I didn't like it for some reason. and I didn't stay long, so I got up and left. The Von Erich brothers, I didn't spend a lot of time around them, but I think they're mentally deficient, a lot of them. They were, I mean, they just, sometimes you couldn't even talk to them. What was the second one's name? David was the oldest. Kevin?
There was Jack Jr. who died as a child, and then it was David, then Kerry or Kevin.
David was okay. Kevin was a moron. Because, well, I won't say a moron, but, you know, when you'd ask him something, of course, he was all messed up. You couldn't understand a word he was saying. I had a couple of matches with him. He just knocked the crap out of me. You know, he was careless. So I couldn't do anything. I wouldn't let him pick me off my feet because I thought he'd drop me on my head. And the youngest one, he was little, but he was trying to live up to the Von Erich reputation and couldn't do it.
Chris.
And that's a very sad, tragic family, really.
Did you have any interaction with Fritz then? Because I don't know what he was telling these kids that they all thought shooting themselves was some sort of appropriate course of action to be reunited with their brothers or whatever. But I mean, I don't get it. I mean, how can one family all go through that?
Well, that's a mystery that I don't know. But even reading about them, they weren't. I read a story about Kevin and the Von Erichs in Texas. They were like gods. The Von Erichs, everybody knew the Von Erichs in Texas, in parts of Oklahoma, Louisiana, wherever that TV played. But I did read a story about Kevin one time and said he was thinking about killing himself. And he pulled up in this parking lot and he was thinking out there in the car, and there was like a pawn shop there. So he got up and he walked into the pawn shop, and everybody looked at him and they said, "Hey, Kevin, how are you?" They all knew him. There's like 3 people in the store. And he walked around and he picked up a gun. I don't know if he picked up a shotgun or a pistol. And he just put it in his, I don't know, a pistol he'd put in his pocket. But he walked out the door with the gun. And guess what the people in the store did? Nothing. They didn't do one thing. And he went to the car and sat down, and he was thinking about killing himself. I don't know if he had any ammunition or not. But then he walked back in there and gave it back to him. And they all walked up to him. They were Christians, and they loved the Von Erichs. And they all went and hugged him, and they said a prayer with him and wished him well. Now, that's a pretty strong story. And he said this happened, so I don't have any reason to disbelieve him, but I really can believe him because the Von Erichs were over. So when he walked into the store, I'm sure they all knew him. So part of that, I think, has got to be true. You ever hear that story?
No, I've never heard that story.
Well, you heard it now.
Yeah, Kevin's the remaining alive.
Yes.
Von
yes.
Erich. You never wrestled Kerry, did you?
I did wrestle Kerry in a tag match. It was me and Gary Hart and can't remember his name now. Good guy, though. He's like a wild man gimmick, beard. We wrestled Fritz and Kerry and David in Houston. And Houston always did its own TV. See, Houston was like Chicago and another town. They were like outliers. They didn't have their own talent. They would just bring talent in, whoever they wanted. And they did great business for a lot of years. Oh, St. Louis was like that. It was Houston, St. Louis, and Chicago. It's almost like in a line going up. And they were not affiliated with one territory. I mean, the St. Louis would use a lot of Kansas City guys. Houston would use a lot of the Mid-South guys. And Chicago would just use people from all over. But their business stayed good. So, but that's how I wrestled the Von Erich in Houston, because I was working the Texas territory. That was the 3 weeks I was there.
I also remember the story where you said that Kerry Von Erich and The Undertaker had a driving competition, and then Kerry got out and body slammed The Undertaker and stuff. I love the booking of it. I mean, even like Undertaker even...
They made that up. Because Undertaker, I asked him, I said, did y'all make that up? He said, no, the car stalled on him. Because he was supposed to be in the fastest car. And he was a fast car, because he did beat Kerry off the line. But when he got around the curve, I think he was trying to switch gears or something, and it broke down. So Kerry slammed his brakes on, got out of the car, went back there, punch, pulled him out, slammed him. And, of course, the crowd was a half mile away. Of course, they cheered. And then he got back in the car and come around and he won. It's the damnedest finish I ever saw. I liked it.
Hey, it's memorable. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you one more question. We've got a couple extra, and I don't know if you want to bring up something at the end as well. But Vader, Baconator, Forrest, is MS Mississippi, shorthand.
Mississippi, yes.
My favorite territory is and always will be Memphis, and one of my all-time favorite heels was Flamboyant Eric Embry. Do you have any stories of or interactions with the Flamboyant one? Thank you for the years, memories, and stories.
Well, Eric made his name in Texas. He was an irritating heel. I mean, he's the type of heel that can draw you money, because most of the people in the crowd think they can beat him up. Yet he's doing all these dastardly things to all the people they like. And he was a great worker. And I don't know, I think he's from Kentucky. And he just one of those independent guys who got started, and somebody liked him. And then he had a knack for booking. He booked Texas. And as far as my own interactions with him, I had very few, but I had him in Memphis. But I had good matches with him. But I never heard he did anything crazy. Is he passed away now?
No, he's still alive, and he is from Kentucky.
Yep. Okay. Good guy, good worker, really good worker, and all the programs that I remember him being in, all drew money. And some guys just have that natural knack of, and him being a heel was great, but he was a good baby face too. So if you're a good heel and they turn you, now the people, they a lot of times they wanted to cheer you anyway. Now they can cheer you. So sometimes your best baby faces were the best heels before.
Yeah. Where was his greatest success, would you say? Because he never made it to any of the big promotions, but was it Dallas?
Texas.
Yeah.
Texas was his biggest achievement, probably in the wrestling business. See, he wasn't very big. He was like 5'10", maybe. And, at 5'10", you don't match up to, say, somebody 6'3", 6'4". And that's what WWE was looking for.
And he was trained by Lou Thez, apparently. Retired in 1993.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either. So, I'll tell you what, on that note, I know you want to talk about an exotico from Mexico. We'll save that for next week, I reckon. There's another question here that I really want to get into as well, because I didn't know this about you, but I'm going to save those for next week. What a tease that is that I've left for you. Always,
now you tease me.
Cliffhanger, and who's the other one? You always wanted to. What do you? I can't remember. I can't remember the line, man. You're always booking for Cliffhanger and someone else.
I forgot. I've been hit on the head too many times.
It's that's going to bug me. Anyway, I can't help it. I've been on a lot of drugs this last week. My memory's not what it was. Right. Thank you very much for watching or listening. Do you know what? It's true.
I want everybody to know that we said first today, a podcast done when a guy is on drugs heavily.
No,
and that's James.
I sober. I'm sober today.
Are you really?
Yeah. I took one pill. I took 3 pills this morning, and they've all worn off by now. That's why I keep shifting around in my chair. So when you're answering, I'm just like, I'm trying not to do it on camera. But
I saw you.
Yeah, that's actually me trying.
Listen, you need to go now and go load yourself down and get out of that pain.
You're absolutely right, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go kiss the sky. Right, we've got books, links in the description. You know the whole score. Thank you very much for watching. A Dutch. We'll catch you again next week. We, the people.
We, the people.